Hi there, and welcome back to another episode at Station Road. Now today we're actually just going to do the part 2 for the Kadee Couplings. As you'll possibly remember if you've seen the previous video, link in the top corner, we had some issues with some of the Bachmann wagons, so some people did come back with some great ideas and suggestions, so we'll take a closer look at that in a minute. I'm also just going to do a wee quick update on a few things that I have been working on now that I'm back here at Station Road, which includes some Metcalfe kit that I've done to replace the somewhat dilapidated hotel which the silverfish began to start eating. So without further ado, we'll take a close look at these couplings and see what solutions I was able to come up with to get all these couplings at the same height. Here are some of the wagons we looked at in the previous video, and well, I'll point out the ones that did actually work, and of course the Bachmann brake van had no issues, so the Kadee coupler just simply fitted into the NEM pocket and we didn't have to do any adjustment whatsoever, so that one worked out very well. The same applied to the Daypole wagons, and it was a simple case of plug the Kadee into the NEM pocket. Now, as you'll recall from the video, I did have to adjust the lug that wee screw goes into just to tighten it up, but that was only on this particular Daypole wagons. So what we ended up with was a couple of these wagons. So we had we'll start with the Hornby wagon. Of course, that was very unusual and that needed completely different treatment. Now, in this one here, which I went through a wee process on this, I glued a piece of plastic strip on the underside to space out the Kadee coupling, which was a Kadee coupling including the box as well. So this is a Kadee coupling with whisker springs on it. This is a slightly different system to the Kadees that come with the NEM plug on it. So because this wagon didn't have NEM pockets on it, quite different. Now, one of the guys at my local model shop suggested this product here, which I'd never heard of before, and Milliput or Milliput, and it is basically a 2-part epoxy putty. Now, probably a lot of you have heard of it. It's actually apparently made in Wales, and it's very commonly used in the plastic kits area. So I'm imagining model aircraft and army kits and other plastic kits. Apparently it is used a lot in that, but I have never come across this, so I thought I'd give this a go instead of using a plastic strip on this, and I think it's actually going to work very well. So this is one that I've just done, and it's just setting off at the moment. It takes apparently 3 to 5 hours to go rock solid, and I've just basically put a glob in there because it was uneven underneath, and then pushed the coupling down on it, and of course it's actually poked up through the hole, which might actually even give it even more strength. And then of course it sort of fills in on the other side where there was that gap. So and I just simply keep pressing pressing the coupling down until we get the desired height or correct height. And then apparently when this putty is set, it just sets solid, it's like plastic. You can drill it, you can carve it, you can sand it. So and apparently it's super strong, so we'll see how this goes, but I think that could be the solution for these, particularly for these Hornby wagons, with just simply attaching a Kadee coupling and box unit onto the underframe. So that's what I've used for that. Now the other one that is quite an unusual, well, these two here, these Bachmann wagons, so we've got a tank wagon and we've got a livestock wagon, was the NEM pockets were at an unusual height. And of course we can actually see this, and this was pointed out because my observation skills weren't brilliant at the time I made the previous video, that for example here is a tension lock coupling with a NEM plug on it to go into a NEM socket. Not so sure what this is, but as you can see, the actual clip is in line with the coupling. Now the ones that came off the Bachmann ones are stepped down, so this is where we're getting these issues with height. So clearly the Bachmann couplings, the Bachmann NEM pockets are at a different height, and they've just simply gone and actually made their own tension lock couplings with a kink in it to get around that issue, rather than actually dropping the NEM pocket down. So hence why we've got this unusual coupling here. So this is the problem we had with these ones. Now I've gone for two different ways of tackling this in the meantime, because one person in the previous video suggested that if I just simply glue the Kadee coupling onto the underside of the NEM pocket, and in doing so it'll be at the right height. And I can't remember who it was, but you're absolutely right, it does actually work out at the perfect height. So at this end here I've simply glued the coupling to the NEM pocket on the underside, and so you still get the flex in it. You could still take the coupling out if you had to, but it is permanently glued to the actual NEM pocket. Now the only worry I have with this is, and I've used Zap glue, which I'll show you in a minute. That is quite strong, but I just sort of worry that, you know, if you accidentally, I mean not intentionally, slam some wagons together, is this going to break? That's my only concern about that. Now at the other end, what I've actually done, which is different again, is I've glued the NEM pocket actually into the underframe bracket at a certain height. So you can see here there's a gap, and I just simply put a spacer in under there while I was gluing it, and then pulled it out afterwards. So that is at the right height. Now the only problem with this one is that the NEM pocket is permanently glued into the underframe, but of course you can unclip the coupling. So there's two different versions here, and I kind of feel like, well, what I might do is have this wagon near the locomotive, have a long rake of wagons behind it, and just simply put it through its paces and test it, and we'll see which one of these actually survives. They may both survive, but that's an option there. And I have gone ahead with gluing the in this particular wagon, I've glued the coupling onto the underside of the NEM pocket, much the same as that one end of the other wagon, and we'll just see what happens. I think I'll just going to go for a bit of a testing phase before I do any more couplings, and just see if these handle it. Now the glue that I've used, and I did actually think of super glue, I thought of poly cement and things like that, but I actually thought I'll use this. Now this is actually brilliant glue. I actually use it for building cardboard kits, like Metcalfe kits, and it has a certain amount of flex to it, but it's also incredibly strong. So I kind of feel like, well, if there's any impact from wagons banging together, that this might be the better glue. So I've used some of this, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That pretty much covers it. What I'll do is we'll just bring the camera down, and I'll just show you some of the heights on these couplings, and I'm waiting for some other couplings to dry. I've just taken the ones out of there. We'll just actually put these back in. They should be dry by now, and we'll assemble a bit of a selection of wagons together and see how it goes. So there is our gauge, height gauge, and if we just lift that off, you'll see we've got a perfect height for that now. And if we move along, that's our train put together with Kadee Couplings. So they're all actually working very well at all at the right height. And this will now assemble a train that I'll probably do quite a bit of testing with to just see how strong the glued Kadee couplings will be. Right, so that's the end of part 2 of the couplings, the Kadee couplings. So I kind of hope you know, you found them useful, and I know that I am now competing against Hunt couplings, which I understand have taken the UK by storm. So I would like to get my hands on some of those. Apparently they are low on stocks, funny enough, and they're also, I believe, about to start shipping worldwide. So yeah, it would be great to have a look at these when they can be accessed from New Zealand. Now, a couple of other things to add, well, just essentially sort of updates what I've been doing, and also what hopefully will be coming up possibly next week in terms of model railway content. Now, as you all know, and it seems to be well, seems to be quite a good pastime at the moment, I guess, with self-isolation and quarantines and all sorts of things going on around the world, is to, of course, get out your model making gear and get busy with kits. Now, Metcalfe seemed to have come to the rescue for a lot of people out there, and of course myself included. So one of my recent builds, which was just the other day, is this department store. Now, I did put some information up on Facebook about it and did some wee photos, and as you can see, it's customized. I've got a new name for the store, so it's Annie's Interiors, and that of course is sort of named after my stepdaughter, who is quite the skilled or upcoming interior designer, I should say. And so I have established her own store at Station Road. Now I have illuminated this, and as you can see, the back wiring, it looks a little bit like spaghetti, but that's okay because that's all going to be hidden, and we'll plug this in and get it lit up. Now, one of the things that I actually came across in terms of lighting, which I now think is a good idea, and it's probably been done, and probably people have used this, but it's essentially buying these wee clips and harnesses, plugs, whatever you want to call them, and you can simply plug a LED light into the end of it. So we'll just take a closer look at this. So we've got this wee plug harness, and of course these are pretty much available anywhere, and of course they come with the male and the female plug. And but what's really handy is the fact that the two pinholes at the end just fit nicely for the pins on the LED. So you know, if by chance a LED does go bung, then it's a simple case of pull that out and plug another one in. And then of course this part here, the harness, can then be glued or fixed securely to the inside of the building, and it's just a simple case of unplug and plug in. So that was the lighting technique, and so these are all glued in at different levels on the back and so forth, and then wired up. Now, I've actually wired this all up in parallel as opposed to series, and then we have essentially what I'm going to put into the circuit is a resistor. Probably difficult to see there, just to avoid popping LEDs, but we can just test it now. So I've got myself a wee 9-volt battery, and the main wiring system, or the main power for the lights and so forth on the layout, is actually a 9-volt DC transformer. So that seems to actually give a much more sort of stable current power supply, and so you avoid having flickering lights and so forth. So I'll just plug this in. Better make sure with my dodgy wiring that I don't create a short circuit. So there we have it, all illuminated up, and I changed out the back wall scenes. I made up my own with Photoshop, and found some bits and pieces of furniture which I then photoshopped in there onto some stripy wallpaper. We've got some pot plants, pictures on the wall, and then also bought some, they're made by Knock, some furniture sets. So they are HO scale, but I sort of think, well, they're inside the building, it's not going to be too noticeable about the scale difference. So there we have it, and I think it's come out quite well. Right, now what I'm planning on doing, hopefully for next weekend, is a video on my new control system, which is the Digitrax DR5000 control system. I sold my Hornby Elite, and so I haven't actually run any trains for actually quite a while, so I'm really looking forward to getting this set up, but it is going to mean a bit of work in terms of getting the laptop all hooked up and finding a wee posi for it. But I have done a wee bit of testing and it all works. So I've loaded in most of my locomotives, and it's brilliant, and I'm using the Z21 app as well to run the locomotives, and so far the testing has all worked really well. So that's what I hope to get into with next weekend's video. So we'll leave it there, and I think probably, well, firstly, a massive thank you to all the comments from my previous video, and also the many condolences that I also received with regard to the passing of my dad. That's just lovely. I mean, you know, you guys, there's just wonderful people out there, and you know, if there's one thing that I can say about the model railway community, you know, apart from the fact that you know, model railroading to me is such a joy, it is also the model railway community. You guys are all just brilliant. So I think, well, the only other thing is keep safe, everyone, you know, with what's storming the world at the moment. Yeah, just look after yourselves and look after your families and neighbours. So farewell for now, and I will see you next time. Cheers. Bye.